Hello and welcome to Meaningful Mental Health. I am your host, Cheryl August. Today we will be talking about suicide prevention. Suicide isn't something we talk about very often. However, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, more common than homicide. And each day an estimated 22 veterans die by suicide. So how do we talk about suicide prevention, and how do we deal with it when the situation arises? We're going to the streets to see what people think about suicide prevention. Going to you, Kat and Gustavo.
What would you do if someone you cared about called and said that they were thinking of committing suicide?
The most obvious is try to console them into stopping till somebody intervened, getting them aware of programs out there, hopefully some of the things that are either by phone or by Skype or getting a phone number, but getting crisis help, trying to make them feel that if they were available, people were available for them.
I have PTSD. I'm a combat veteran. I served in Iraq 08 through 09, and I did a lot of research on my own. And they didn't really have a lot of information about like PTSD for the Vietnam veterans. That's why a lot of them were like addicted to drugs and stuff, and a lot of veterans were homeless, and a lot of people don't understand the mental health issues that they have.
I actually have known people that jumped off the bridge, so it's kind of a difficult question for me. And I think last year when I was driving in from work, I saw somebody jumping off.
There are so many people out there that are suffering mentally. We're all about the physical, taking care of cancer and everything, and that's hugely important. But then the mental, where there's not a quick fix and stuff, people are suffering. Nobody jumps off the bridge or does stuff to hurt themselves unless they are in pain.
I would try to be a good influence to them, and I know a lot of clinics have like psychiatrists and stuff to help them deal with mental health issues, but like most colleges, they have counselors and they have like hotlines, but I think it should be like more awareness on that, because a lot of people don't know that, and they always coming up with like new research and diagnosis on mental health illnesses.
It's not something in which you have to feel embarrassed about it. I mean, it's about your health. It just happens to be mental health. It doesn't mean that it's not still your health.
Somebody could look good on the outside and the physical, but it's like a mental illness that people are dealing with, and sometimes it could be severe and people need like the resources to deal with it.
We all need to be advocates to help those that are really suffering.
Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Herdiese Bates and Cameron Duvall. Thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome.
Herdiese, can you tell us what your experience has been with suicide?
Well, I had a lot of health issues.
A lot of health issues.
Health issues, including cancer.
Including cancer.
Mm-hmm. So I been a lot of pain, a lot of agony.
A lot of pain.
Very lot of pain, sleepless nights, and just overwhelming, with just not knowing how to deal with it.
Tell us a little bit more about what was happening in your life.
Well, at the time, the pain was so excruciating that I didn't know what to do, and I had medication. The medication wasn't working, and it just became overwhelming, and it was just like, I don't know, I couldn't get no relief, didn't know what to do, and I had all these thoughts in my head to just end it, numb the pain, get rid of it forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept, just thinking it, and I knew if I hadn't reached out to someone that I was going to act on it.
Mm-hmm. So that's how unbearable
and
intolerable
unbearable.
The pain was.
Very unbearable.
Throughout your body, and also getting cancer treatments at the same time.
Yes.
Now, what happened to intercede in that? Because you were pretty close.
Yes, I was.
Ending it.
Well, I was at a doctor's appointment, and some lady that was there, I think she was caregiving for someone else. And I was just talking about how, I was just tired of going through this treatment and nothing was helping, and I just felt like ending it, and I was like almost to the point of giving up. And she overheard my conversation, and she came over and sat by me. She was like, no, no, no. Sweetie, she said, I understand what you're going through. I've been there. And she asked me, have I heard of resources that could help me? And nobody's going to help me, I've been going through this for the last 2 years, and nobody's there. And she said, well, I have a, suggestion for you. I'm like, okay, well, me, I'm kind of a little stubborn. I don't want to, hear what people have to say. But I said, okay. And she gave me a number to a hotline. And I was like, yeah, right, hotline. Nobody's going to, be there for me. So it took like a day or two. And as the pain kept getting and the thoughts kept coming, and I decided to pick up the phone and call the hotline.
That was a big decision.
I was at my last end.
Yes, and there was help.
Yes, it was.
And you decided to give it a chance.
I decided to give it a try. Helped me a whole lot. So after I decided to pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
The amazing thing happened. It's like when I held the phone for a minute, and then it was like, hello, hi, this is Hotline. Can I help you? And I was like, oh, it's really somebody on the other end of this line. And I said, hi, my name is, and at first I said, no, a anonymous name,
Yeah.
And she said, oh, yeah, well, how can I help you, And I said, you sure you can help me? And then so I started talking, well, go ahead, just tell me what's going on with you. And as I began to talk to her, and she said, well, I want you to know that I'm here for you.
So it seems you're a little emotional when you say that?
Well,
it really touched you?
Yeah, it's a lot of people don't realize that when you're in that state of mind and you're about to give up, and to have someone pick up the phone and say, I'm here for you, it's like, for me, it was like a light, like God had just shined down on me, excuse me.
Yes.
But it was like a light that shined out on me and let me know that there was hope. And that's all I was looking for, was somebody to listen, And then, I don't know for other people, but for me, to have that one person on the phone, and I got to just dump and just get it all out. And then they were like, they didn't interrupt, they didn't judge me, but she did make a suggestion when I got a little bit over, excited. She was telling me to breathe, count, and I was like, as I breathe and I count, I noticed that a lot of the anger, a lot of the stuff that I was compressed inside began to subside, and I was able to kind of like really let her know what I was going through. And I think that's very important. If someone's there to listen to you and without interrupting you, then that way you're able to give them what's really going on inside you, and that way they can kind of assist you with help that you need.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so for the past 2 years that you were in agony,
oh boy,
did you reach out to friends or family to tell them?
I was too afraid.
Yeah, what was the fear?
Of being judged.
Of being judged.
And then people look at you like, for me, they think I'm a strong black woman, and the organizations that I belong to. But deep underneath that, I'm human just like everyone else.
That's right.
I have my breaking points, I have my weakness, and you try to keep that facade up, don't want anybody to know what you're going through, but you're really hurting inside, And by me not telling anyone, it began to just manifest and get deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more deeper it got, the more the thoughts come into my head to just end it.
So you didn't want to be a burden, and you didn't want to be judged?
I didn't want to be judged.
And you felt ashamed that
I was very ashamed.
Yeah,
I was very
that you weren't
ashamed.
as strong as people thought you were.
No,
and it was too much of an effort, being in so much pain, to pretend anymore.
Yeah, after a while you don't. So you either find help or you go the other way. And I really wasn't ready to go that way, but the thoughts were there. And that was the thing that kept edging me to just pick up the phone.
Tell me, how did that relationship unfold with the suicide hotline?
Oh my God. You know what? That was a blessing to me. I was able to talk to them. Now, they had kind of like, not really like a profile, but they had me on file, so they told me if I did call back, someone else would probably, you know, take the call or whatever, but they would know and they would be able to help me from wherever, you know, whatever issues I wanted to talk about. And through that, they were able to connect me with an agency that had a therapist. And I was able to call it. It took me a little bit. You know, I didn't go to it right away, but knowing that there was some resources out there gave me that extra hope, gave me that time to not think about ending it. You know.
So the importance of follow-up after the phone call was really key.
That's the key thing, is because the help is out there for you, but you have to do the footwork. And you have to put your pride aside and say, hey, you know what, this I want to live. I don't want to go that route. In order for me to overcome this obstacle, I'm going to have to reach out, you know.
So I'm just really appreciating your story. And I wonder how your thoughts have changed since you got the support that you needed.
Well, I'm able now to reach out to other people. I'm there for them. I have a nice support group system. I sponsor a few ladies, and I have this like youth program with me and my daughter that we have once a month, and we have like 15 teens come over and spend the night, and we do makeovers, and we talk about issues, and we try to keep them on track and not to hold a lot of stuff in, things that they can't talk about with their parents, and we keep it confidential unless it's something that's, you know, devastating. But that's there. I'm able to talk to a lot of people, and I'm able to open up now. I'm able to like tell my story and not feel ashamed. You know, because I'm here.
So you have gone through a transformation.
A big transformation.
And I would like everyone to know the 3 most important keys that you feel we need to know for suicide prevention.
Well, number 1 is never give up. And don't be afraid, don't be ashamed to pick up the phone. If there's resources that is available to you, tap into it. Do the follow-up. It may not happen the first time, but keep calling. As they say in the program, keep coming back, keep calling them back. Number 2 is never feel that you're alone. There's someone out there that's going through the same thing you are, even worse, and they know they maybe can help you or you can help them. And number 3, remember, God is there. And with God's help, we can do anything. We just have to trust. And if no one told you they loved you today, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Herdiese. And now we'd like to turn to our expert about suicide prevention. And Cami, could you please share with us a little bit about your experience with mental health and substance use in the communities you work with?
I'd be happy to. I am a marriage and family therapist, and I work specifically, predominantly, I should say, with the LGBT community. Being a member of it, I am also aware of a lot of the intimate challenges that go on within this community, kind of behind closed doors a lot. When we look at suicide and substance abuse, we see that we have much higher prevalences in the LGBT community than when compared to the overall population. The overall population, when we look at teenagers particularly, which is my focus group, we see that standard overall population suffers from about 1.6% suicide rate in America. The standard teenage population suffers suicide at about a 4.4% rate. However, when we look at LGB, lesbian, gay, or bisexual teens, they tend to suffer from suicide at a rate of about 20%, and transgender youth about 40%. 2 in 5 have actually attempted suicide.
What, in your experience, are the early signs so that one can detect if one is on that road?
Certainly. I think that there are quite a few things that we look at. I actually think that substance use plays a big part in the early warning signs. I feel that a lot of youth resort to substances, and adults too, will resort to substances, to try to quell the pain, to try to numb something. And then, that can often be a learned behavior or just something they kind of come across. Substance abuse usually is combating, so to speak, or I shouldn't say usually, but often combating that hopelessness that was mentioned earlier. And that's such a big piece. If you see somebody that is openly telling you that they feel hopeless about their situation, that's when outreach is important. That's when we need to actually, reach out to them and make sure that they're okay.
You make a really good point about reaching out to them, because who could a youth feeling very uncomfortable about being judged or feeling ashamed, who could they turn to if they can't speak to their family and friends?
Yeah, and that's a real challenge for a lot of youth, particularly when they're in a double stigma situation, maybe in a stigma of just being a minority in the population, or a double minority, being a member of the community, as well as another perceived minority status. So we have a lot of challenges about where can these kids go. There are a lot of programs out there that will go into schools and will talk to youth about it, that will attempt some reach out programs. But we need more programs in schools. Youth are 21 times more likely to access services if they're in their school. Yes. Most schools have counselors in place, but again, there's that double stigma of, oh, they're going to tell my parents, or I'm going to get kind of put into this system. How can I deal with it on my own? A lot of youth turn to each other, particularly in their communities. With the LGBT community, however, we're such a small representation that often LGBT youth struggle in finding other LGBT youth, except on the internet, of course, but it's the internet.
What kind of information should parents relate to the experts? In other words, if the parents suspect that their child is going through a real difficult time with their sexual identity, they're often afraid to put that stigma on their child.
Certainly.
So what kind of information should they relay to the experts when they do contact them?
That's actually a great question. I look for, of course, as I mentioned earlier, levels of hopelessness are really important. How long has your child been feeling this level of hopelessness? I also look for isolation. Isolation is a big problem just in our community, let alone in people who are suffering or contemplating suicide. So I kind of want to know who they're reaching out for, if they have anyone that they're reaching out. But then I also want to know the family acceptance rates. Family acceptance has been proven to be the #1 largest mitigating factor for youth to become thriving, successful adults. Even if their parents don't understand or fully support it, if they support them as their child, that's usually the #1 line of defense I will try to work with and get the families involved. So I like to ask family involvement and family participation, rituals, things like that with their family, that as to whether there's any participation or not.
Yeah. And so we're wondering, what should parents relay to the expert? What should they say when they feel guarded to stigmatize or label their child?
Well, often before I see children, I will meet with the parents once or twice to kind of get a background of the child, a teenager or young child. And in those early meetings, I really stress and want to know, specifically, how long have they been noticing these behaviors in their children? How would they describe them as severity? Of course, that's, some parents will downplay things because of the stigma, again, that's associated, as well as, but I also really want parents to feel comfortable that it's not a reflection of them, And that it's not a part, it has nothing to do with them being, doing something as a parent that's going to lead this. This is just something that we have, that happens in a lot of people's brains and whatnot. So there are a lot of things that I really would like to know, but I really try to find out what is this child accepted by extended family? Is this child, some basic things that kind of go across the board regardless of community. Is this child giving away items? Is this child, after being severely depressed and sad for a long time, all of a sudden feeling better? As though there's nothing wrong anymore. That's a pretty big warning sign as well. So those are some of the more crisis signs I would look for, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. And parents shouldn't be afraid to contact an expert.
Oh no. In fact, they should contact because they can be the biggest support for their child most of the time. And we have plenty of people that are out here really, really willing to help them and to provide those services to them and help those parents help their children be successful.
Yes.
So that they can keep it in the home if they decide they want to.
Wow. So one more time about this stigma and labeling. Yeah. A lot of people, especially youth, would be concerned about being labeled if they reach out for help. What advice would you give them?
Well, the advice that I would give to youth when it comes to worrying about stigma is that, yeah, stigma does exist in some circles. It's there. We're making big strides to combat it and to work with it. But what I tell a lot of youth is these experiences that we go through in our lives, however good or bad we might perceive them or tough, it can actually be very empowering. And that owning these experiences can actually help them help other people, can be meaningful, and can give them some meaning to their lives. That it's nothing bad about it. In fact, it can be an awesome tool to use. And I try to be more empowering with them and give them some purpose.
After they go through this crisis of identity and acceptance and being labeled, and they get that sense of empowerment and owning their own experience and how valuable that will be as a tool to help others, where do they go to for ongoing appropriate services?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there are a whole variety of ongoing services in our community. There's lots of family agencies. There are community-based support from the county that run programs. Any program that would serve youth would be able to serve LGBTQ youth. However, depending on whether I guess you would say the coming out status of that youth, if they are out and open, and how they manage that, or if it's something that's still a secret for them, it might determine where they might go. If they are out and open, I find that a lot of school-based services, again, such as gay straight alliance clubs that these kids have, where they can go and talk to their peers. Peer support is by far the best thing that they can get. And then of course there are many therapists out there, such as myself, that are willing to really give reduced fees for these youth that need this extra help. But those wraparound services are so important, and we unfortunately, in the majority of the society, lack a lot of them. We help the kids get through the crisis, but then there is kind of this, okay, there you go,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do need to get better on that.
Because you do agree that there's support is very necessary on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, in the LGBT community, we lack community. Again, because there are so few of us. We're roughly 10% of the population, approximately. So in many areas, we're very spread out, and we can't rely on a strong community sense of resilience to fall back on. So I like to work with kids around resilience and helping them know that they can survive this, but also to be their own advocates. And when they need help, not to be afraid to ask for it. Because there are lots of people like us here today that really want to help.
Yeah. So. Well, Cami, if there are 3 things that you could recommend to a youth that is going through that crisis now and doesn't really believe that there is support out there, like with Herdiese, when she heard, "I'm here for you," it made such a big difference. So can you say 3 things to those youth?
What I like to tell youth that are currently struggling and working through this stuff is definitely you're not alone. This is actually something that's really quite common in our society when you talk about mental health. Don't think of it as a mental illness. Think of it as just a unique piece of who we are. and we can work with that. So that's important to me, for them to know.
Yes.
Also, the one I really want to reiterate is that, don't be scared to reach out for help. There are places that like these hotline numbers, they're awesome. You can call, and you can a lot of times be anonymous if you're just wanting someone to hear, and then they will often offer you services, should you decide to take them. But when we do get isolated, it's really easy for us to think that nobody cares and that nobody's going to want to hear our story. And so, that if you have a friend who's struggling with this, reach out to them, ask them, listen to them, because when we get in that space, it's hard for people to reach out for help because of that isolation. So, pay attention. Pay attention to our friends, to our people, and listen. That was probably one of the most fascinating concepts that was brought up earlier.
Yes.
Simple.
Yes, yes. So it sounds like don't be afraid to reach out, and the obstacle really isn't your sexual preference, it's really the fear of reaching out.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. The fear of the repercussion that might come from reaching out.
And speaking one's truth and one's life experience.
Yeah.
So dream, have hope, and reach out.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Cameron Duvall, Herdiese Bates, I thank you so very much for educating us and helping us reach out of our own darkness to the light.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks for your story.
All right. Thank you.
You can find links to resources and full interviews online on our website. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next show.